Welcome to That's Good Sports. I am Brandon. I may have inadvertently jinxed Emmanuel Sanders talking about how tough he was in my recap episode Perna. I am sorry, Emmanuel, but I just don't understand how a man who is a consistent exhibitor of toughness, taking hits like this, flipping into the end zone like this, shreds his Achilles, running routes without a defense in front of him. And no, that's not a diss to the Broncos secondary during practice. Cursed by the football god Gridironius. The 49ers have been dealing with their own significant injuries all year long as well. Jimmy G, Jerick McKinnon, a few defensive backs of their own, and of course having to release Reuben Foster. Today, I'll tell you which banged up team has the better chance at winning Sunday in a game I'm sure very few people will be watching.
What's up, Brandon Perna? It's Jeremy Osborne, my son Ethan, from Cincinnati, Ohio, Ball Ground Stadium. I want to give a shout out to That's Good Broncos and That's Good Sports, Broncos Country.
Hey, if you're in a good mood, please thumbs up this video. YouTube loves that shit, and subscribe here if you're new. Also, I do have Big Dick Patreon shoutouts for Javi, Amador, Nelson, D, Joel, Wampler, John, Swartz, Take My Achilles, Sanders, DeMayo, and Ditka in the Butkus. Ditka in the Butkus, I should give you money for that kind of wordplay. Please consider supporting That's Good Sports at patreon.com/that'sgoodsports. It is how I make a living. It's how I pay Wilkies at Wilkies6, help me podcast and write some of these episodes. And I did just post a lost That's Good Sports episode, lost to the internet ether on Patreon for my patrons. Now I will give the 49ers a half point for home field advantage. Even though Super Bowl 50 taught us that Broncos love tight-ass jeans stadium. Oh boy, do we love that. Vance Joseph versus Kyle Shanahan. Joseph, Shanahan. Shanahan or Joseph? Joseph or Shanahan? Shanahan or Joseph? A battle that Broncos fans have been thinking about every day now for close to 2 years when Elway decided to go with Vance Joseph over Kyle Shanahan. A decision people have lamented here in Denver, but suddenly Vance Joseph may be in the lead. Kyle Shanahan is 8-20 as an NFL head coach. Vance Joseph is now 11-17. Not much better, but better. I'm calling this battle a wash, a tie, because we're about to find out how good Vance Joseph really is. Trying to prepare his team after losing Chris Harris Jr. and Emmanuel Sanders for a game they should definitely win. Broncos O-line and Phillip Lindsay's versus 49ers front seven. The 49ers defensive line is probably the strength not only of the defense but of the whole team. DeForest Buckner has 8.5 sacks as an interior defensive lineman. Arik Armstead next to him is playing well despite spelling Arik with an A. Also, why would you name your kid DeForest? Deforestation is one of the biggest threats to our future as a human race. Hey, why don't you meet my children? DeForest, climate change, ocean plastic, pesticide, fracking, non-recyclable, smog, emissions, and drought. That would be 9 kids, which makes me the Phillip Rivers of ruining the fucking earth. I'm sorry, DeForest. I actually think that's a cool name. Edge rusher Solomon Thomas, in his second season, isn't producing nearly at the level as Bradley Chubb already is. As long as Billy Turner, Connor McGovern, and Elijah Wilkinson can account for DeForest Buckner, Phillip Lindsay should have another big day. Lindsay does 2 things very well. Okay, he does everything well, but specifically, he has great vision. He's like the NFL's version of Stephen Hawking with his uncanny ability to find black holes in the defensive line. Once Lindsay finds that hole, he accelerates through it so quickly, opposing linebackers are usually a step behind in their gap assignment. It's why he has so many big gains this season. And the 49ers do not have a great trio of inside linebackers to stop him. I'm talking Mark Nzocha. Nzocha may meet Kyle Shanahan's quota of having at least one player on offense, Kyle Juszczyk, and on defense with a Z in his name next to a consonant. but that doesn't make him good at stopping the run. The interior pass rush may fuck up Keenum's day, but Lindsay gives this unit a half-point advantage for the Broncos. RIP Emmanuel Sanders versus 49ers secondary. I have to remind myself every week that Richard Sherman is a 49er. That's right, Richard Sherman plays for the 49ers now. I keep forgetting that. He's actually playing very good football despite having 0 picks this season. And like Emmanuel Sanders, he tore his Achilles last season. So there is hope Sanders can fully recover from this injury. Outside of Sherman though, the 49ers secondary is arguably worse than Denver's. San Fran has a league-low 2 interceptions this year. They also only have 7 forced fumbles, so they're not a playmaking defense. Next to maybe the Raiders, this is one of the best teams for Denver to play after losing Emmanuel Sanders. I don't know if Tim Patrick or DaeSean Hamilton will replace Sanders' production in this game, probably a combination of both, but the guy I think Keenum has to lean on is tight end Matt LaCosse. Courtland Sutton will be the guy the 49ers focus on, so LaCosse needs 4 to 5 catches and maybe a touchdown to take some of the pressure off of the young receivers. This is a small advantage, 0.25 for the Broncos. Special teams versus special teams. 49ers kicker Robbie Gould has missed 1 kick this entire season. He's been more accurate than Justin Tucker. So I say Justin, fuck it. Half-point advantage here for the 49ers. Now if this game does come down to a game-winning field goal, Robbie Gould will definitely make it. No chance on earth Robbie Gould misses an easy field goal to lose this game. 49ers O-line and running backs versus Broncos front 7. What is bad news for the 49ers is great news for the Broncos defense. Running back Matt Breida is out with an injury. Breida was having a similar season to Phillip Lindsay, just on a shittier team. He's a really good running back nobody had ever heard of, averaging 5.6 yards per carry this year, and could be very dangerous in 2019 if Jerick McKinnon returns healthy to give those 49ers that classic, cliche 1-2 punch. The 49ers actually have a pretty good offensive line, with 2 tackles playing at a high level. On the left side, it's veteran Joe Staley, and on the right, rookie from Notre Dame, Mike McGlinchey. Those 2 will be tested with Miller and Bradley Chubb, who in addition to combining for 22.5 sacks this season, have 6 forced fumbles. Watch this matchup closely though, because Miller and Chubb have been a little bit quiet in games facing good tackles. The difference the last 2 weeks for the defensive front 7 has been Shelby Harris wrecking the interior. Harris is arguably the best defensive lineman for the Broncos, yet Adam Gotsis has been given 59 more snaps than him this season. Now maybe Harris is just one of those players who needs the rest to stay fresh. Or maybe, just like Phillip Lindsay, the Broncos don't use their best players nearly enough. Now, if Harris continues to perform, which I think he can against the weak part of the 49ers offensive line, he could force Nick Mullens to move right into the loving arms of Chubb and Miller, which Chubb is going to need if he wants to tie that rookie sack record at 14.5. No Matt Breida, and Todd Davis is coming off of a career game, so I give the Broncos a half-point advantage here. 49ers ball catchers versus RIP Chris Harris Jr. 49ers wide receiver Marquise Goodwin returns after an extended absence due to a personal matter. He said, "Personally, I just needed a break from fucking losing every week." Now, I'm not sure if Goodwin will play or if he does, how involved he will be in the offense, but that's a boost for San Francisco. Tremaine Brock is not expected to play for the Broncos, and it sounds like Vance Joseph thinks Brock is milking his injury, which is bad news for the Broncos, as Brock might be the best corner on the team right now. And in addition to Goodwin, the young gun Dante Pettis is coming off a great game against Seattle. Pettis has the speed to put Robbie and Stewart on another episode of the Not Top 10. Now I know what you're thinking. As long as the Broncos can cover tight end George Kittle, Nick Mullens will struggle in the passing game. Wrong. If anyone can destroy the Broncos secondary, it's number 84, Jason Bourne. Okay, his first name is Kendrick, so just like Jeremy Renner in the Bourne Legacy, he'll probably just have us wishing we were watching Matt Damon instead of this movie. I mean, game. All of that really leaves Bradley Roby and Isaac Yiadom as the starting 2 corners to try and cover fullback Kyle Juszczyk out of the backfield with probably 10 to 20 targets in the game. The 49ers throw to their fullback a lot. Now, the 49ers offense without Matt Breida is going to throw the ball, I think, quite a bit against this Denver secondary. However, I have no fucking clue who the nickel corner is going to be for the Broncos. Jamar Taylor, Brendan Langley. I'm going to give the 49ers a slight advantage. Nick Mullens versus Case Keenum. Wow, I didn't expect to say this, but Case Keenum might get the advantage 2 weeks in a row. The excitement 49ers fans felt for Nick Mullens is similar to the excitement Broncos fans felt for Case Keenum this offseason. The difference being Broncos fans' excitement got to last, it got to linger for several months, whereas 49ers fans were slapped back to reality after 10 days. Mullens threw for 414 yards and 2 touchdowns last week in a blowout loss to the Seahawks. Which is great news for Denver, because when guys like Phillip Rivers and Ben Roethlisberger throw for more than 400 yards, the Broncos win. Now, Mullens hasn't been bad. He's just been playing like a former third-string quarterback forced into the starting role because of injuries. Case Keenum has managed to throw for less and less yards every week during the Broncos' 3-game win streak. That's like having less and less sex, but somehow getting way more pregnant. Or making less and less money while watching your debt just disappear. I mean, fuck, that makes Case Keenum sound like the MVP to me. Now, I don't want to hate on Keenum because he's eliminated the interceptions, but I hate watching him play 85% of the time. But then 15% of the time, he turns a broken third down into a first, or after 3 off-target throws, he drops a dime 40 yards deep down the field. So he can have a small 0.25 advantage over Mullens. So for better or worse, I accept you, Case Keenum. And just like the Bengals game, the Broncos get the point advantage here because they are the better team, even with the injuries. Now, they should handily win this game, but I bet it will be close, as the offense likes 23 to 24 points, no matter how much better or worse they are than the defense that they are facing. Broncos win 23-17, 4-game win streak. Learn to love it, Broncos fans. Learn to love it. Thanks for watching another episode of That's Good Sports. Please subscribe here to YouTube if you haven't done so. What are you thinking if you haven't done that? Are you even thinking? Are you even thinking though? I'm on Twitter, Instagram, at Brandon Perna. And make sure you check out the podcast Will Keys and I do every Thursday. iTunes, Podbean, That's Good Sports Podcast. Specifically.